In the Seneca methodology, we try to reduce the number of tools to an absolute minimum. However, one tool is still remaining, and that is the so-called list of open points. In project work, very often also referred to as a log list. The log list contains everything you have done in the past and everything you want to do in the future. There is one golden rule in that log list, and that is every single task is assigned to one single specific person. That is a rule you cannot break. If you have a task two people are working on, try to split the task into two tasks. If that is not possible, which is rarely the case, you have to show the same task for two people. Now, the log list contains for every task 4 pieces of information. And those are, number 1, the task itself, the description of the task. Number 2, is the task still open or is it closed? Number 3, if the task is still open, what does the individual who's working on the task, she or he estimates how long will it take to close the task? The additional effort. And number 4 is about, is it a single isolated task or is the task somehow linked to other tasks? That's all. These 4 pieces of information. In the sequel of the video, we will explain all 4 of them again. There is a tendency when you work longer on a project to use some kind of sophisticated language that usually contains a lot of abbreviations. Think about it. If you describe your task, make it as clear, accurate, and understandable to a project outsider as possible. In the Seneca methodology of project management, we try to reduce the number of reports down to 0. So the log list is not only for you, but it's also a tool of communication. So please use a simple, understandable language to describe your tasks. Is a task ongoing or not? That entirely refers to what I have said before about the definition of done. You have to have a clear definition of done before you can say you can close a task. You want to make sure if a task is closed that everybody in the project has the same understanding about task closed, and you don't want to reopen once closed task. One last thing to that one, it might be that a task is closed but not finished. Then please remark it somewhere in the remarks, and there is a field for that. That may happen if a task you're working on becomes unnecessary. You don't need it anymore. Then you also close it, but you mark it in the comments. As easy as that. So when estimating the additional effort to close a task, this has to be done by the person who's actually doing the task. It's not a manager, not somebody else who's doing the estimation. It has to be done by the person who's actually working on the task. Now, in order for that estimation, we chose to take story points. Story points are, in our methodology, strictly related to time. If you read in Scrum literature, story points can also be a combination out of complexity and time, whatever. There are millions of ways to calculate story points. We prefer a very simple method that says 1 story point is 1 hour. And from there on, we double. So after 1 story point comes 2 story points for 2 hours. The next level would be not 3, but 4 story points for half a day. 8 story points for an entire day. 16 story points for 2 days. 32 story points for 4 days, which are actually, if you think it through, an entire week, because you will have additional meetings and something to do. So with 32 hours on a task, that is a lot for one task. By the way, if a task exceeds the 32 story points, think about splitting it into 2 tasks. So every task has a story point between 1 and 32, and there's no such thing as 5 or 17 or 13 story points. You always double for 1. So a simple task has 1 story point. A very, very difficult task, long task, I have to say, has 32 story points. That's it. The last piece of information is about, are we independent in doing the task? Means, do we have to wait for somebody else until he is ready so we can start? Or can we just move the task to every point in time and start whenever we like? We do this by a field called trigger. We talk about triggered tasks. Tasks that are triggered are dependent tasks. If the task is not triggered, we are independent. As simple as that. Usually next to the trigger, you always find a little cell in the lot list that says date. Date is you punch in a date, and that indicates that somebody else is waiting for you. So you are the trigger for somebody else. That's all to say about triggered tasks. Now, summarizing it up, we have now a list with 4 relatively certain accurate information. We have a clear description of the task. We know by definition of done if the task is closed or not. We have an estimation about the additional effort to close the task by the person who's actually doing the task. And last, we know if we are independent by the task. And I think that as certain, accurate, reliable information is quite a lot. And I would like, and I urge you to keep it as simple as that. It is better to have little information and that is certain than create a lot of information that is uncertain. But if you have those 4 keystones, that is something you can build on. And that's what we do. Furthermore, in addition, in the sequel to this video, you will find a little tutorial to a simple Excel table we created. It's relatively small and it contains all the information you need to have the lot list. It's an example of the lot list.